The dark side of power. How authority breeds psychopathy and sociopathy. Introduction. In the annals of human history, the corrupting influence of power has been a recurring theme, from ancient philosophical treatises to modern psychological studies. The adage, "power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely," coined by Lord Acton in the 19th century, continues to resonate in our contemporary world. This article delves into the intricate relationship between positions of authority and the development of psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies, exploring how unchecked power can lead to dehumanization, abuse, and the manifestation of severe psychological disorders. The impact of power on human behavior is not merely a subject of academic interest. It has profound implications for our social structures, institutions, and the very fabric of our societies. From the halls of government to the confines of prisons, from military compounds to corporate boardrooms, the dynamics of power play out in ways that can either uplift or devastate individuals and communities. Understanding these dynamics is crucial not only for those in positions of authority, but for everyone who interacts with power structures, which is to say, all of us. This exploration is particularly timely in an era where abuses of power are increasingly brought to light, whether through investigative journalism, whistleblower accounts, or the amplifying effect of social media. By examining how authority, when left unchecked, can create systems of abuse and victimization, we can begin to formulate strategies to prevent such abuses and foster more humane and just power structures. In the following sections, we will dissect the psychological mechanisms at play when individuals assume positions of power, analyze how these dynamics manifest in various settings, and consider potential solutions to mitigate the darker aspects of authority. Our journey will take us through the corridors of power, examining specific cases that illustrate the consequences of unchecked authority, and ultimately, proposing ways to create more accountable and psychologically healthy leadership structures. Section 1. Understanding power and its psychological impact. To comprehend the relationship between power and psychological disorders, we must first define what we mean by power and authority, and then examine how these concepts intersect with human psychology. Defining power and authority. Power, in its broadest sense, is the ability to influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Authority, on the other hand, is the legitimate right to exercise that power, often conferred by a recognized social structure or institution. While these concepts are related, they are not synonymous. One can have power without authority, as in the case of a charismatic but unofficial leader, or authority without real power, as sometimes seen in figurehead positions. In the context of this discussion, we are primarily concerned with positions that combine both power and authority roles, where individuals have both the ability and the recognized right to exert control over others. These positions can be found in various domains. Political leadership, law enforcement and military command, corporate management, religious leadership, educational administration, correctional facility management. Each of these roles carries with it the potential for significant influence over the lives of others, and consequently, the risk of abuse if that influence is not properly checked and balanced. Overview of psychological disorders, psychopathy, and sociopathy. Before delving into how power affects psychology, it's crucial to understand the disorders we're discussing, psychopathy and sociopathy. While these terms are often used interchangeably in popular culture, they have distinct characteristics in clinical psychology. Psychopathy is generally considered a more severe condition, characterized by lack of empathy and remorse, shallow emotions, manipulative and deceitful behavior, superficial charm, impulsivity and risk-taking behavior, failure to accept responsibility for one's actions. Sociopathy, while sharing some features with psychopathy, is often viewed as a less severe condition. Sociopaths may have a weak conscience rather than none at all, experience some capacity for empathy, albeit limited, form attachments to a select few individuals or groups, behave impulsively and erratically, display less emotional control than psychopaths. Both conditions fall under the broader category of antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. It's important to note that not all individuals in positions of power develop these disorders, nor do all individuals with these disorders seek positions of power. However, the relationship between power and these psychological traits is significant and worthy of examination. How power alters psychological states and behaviors. The psychological effects of power on individuals have been the subject of numerous studies, with findings that illuminate the potential for power to alter one's mental state and behavior. Some key observations include reduced empathy. Studies have shown that individuals in positions of power often display reduced empathy towards others, particularly those they perceive as subordinate. This power-induced empathy gap can lead to a failure to consider the needs and feelings of others when making decisions. Increased self-focus. Power tends to make individuals more self-focused and less attentive to others. This can manifest as an inflated sense of self-importance and a diminished ability to take others' perspectives into account. Risk-taking behavior. Those in power often exhibit increased propensity for risk-taking, which can be both a positive in terms of innovation and negative in terms of reckless decision-making trait depending on the context. Overconfidence. Power can lead to overconfidence in one's abilities and judgment, potentially resulting in poor decision-making and an inability to recognize or admit mistakes. Moral disengagement. Individuals in power may find it easier to disengage from moral self-sanctions, justifying actions that they might otherwise consider unethical. Increased stereotyping and discrimination. Power has been linked to increased reliance on stereotypes and a greater likelihood of engaging in discriminatory behavior. Hypocrisy. Studies have shown that powerful individuals are more likely to engage in behaviors they condemn in others, exhibiting a do as I say, not as I do mentality. These psychological shifts can create a fertile ground for the development or exacerbation of psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies. When combined with a lack of accountability, these altered states can lead to severe abuses of power and the creation of toxic environments. It's important to note that these effects are not inevitable consequences of power, but rather potential outcomes when power is not tempered by strong ethical frameworks, robust accountability systems, and ongoing self-reflection and personal development. The mechanisms of dehumanization. Central to the abuse of power and the development of psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies is the process of dehumanization. This psychological mechanism allows those in power to distance themselves emotionally and morally from those over whom they exert control, facilitating actions that might otherwise be constrained by empathy and ethical considerations. Explanation of dehumanization and its psychological effects. Dehumanization is the process by which individuals or groups are perceived as lacking the attributes that make them fully human. This can involve seeing others as less intelligent, or sophisticated. Lacking in emotional depth. More animal-like or machine-like. Undeserving of moral consideration. The psychological effects of dehumanization are profound and far-reaching. For the dehumanizer, reduced empathy and emotional connection. Decreased moral concern for the dehumanized individuals. Increased likelihood of engaging in cruel or abusive behavior. Justification of exploitative or harmful actions. For the dehumanized, decreased self-esteem and sense of self-worth. Increased stress and psychological trauma. Internalization of negative perceptions. Reduced motivation and productivity. Dehumanization as a tool of power. Those in positions of authority often employ dehumanization, consciously or unconsciously, as a tool to maintain and expand their power. This can manifest in various ways. Language and labeling, using terms that strip away individuality or human qualities, for example, referring to prisoners by numbers rather than names. Uniforms and standardization, implementing practices that reduce individual expression and identity. Bureaucratic processes, creating systems that treat people as cases or statistics rather than individuals. Propaganda and stereotyping, promoting narratives that portray certain groups as less than human or as threats to society. Physical and emotional distance, maintaining separation between those in power and those under their control, reducing opportunities for empathy and connection. Historical examples abound, from the dehumanization of enslaved peoples to justify slavery, to the propaganda used in wartime to portray enemy combatants and civilians as subhuman. In more contemporary settings, we see dehumanization at play in the treatment of prisoners, in certain corporate practices that view employees as replaceable resources, and in political rhetoric that demonizes opposing groups or minorities. The role of dehumanization in fostering psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies. Dehumanization plays a crucial role in the development and reinforcement of psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies among those in power. Empathy erosion. By viewing others as less than human, individuals in power can more easily ignore or suppress their natural empathetic responses. This erosion of empathy is a hallmark of both psychopathy and sociopathy. Moral disengagement. Dehumanization allows for a disconnection from moral self-sanctions. If those under one's power are not seen as fully human, it becomes easier to justify actions that would otherwise be considered unethical or cruel. Narcissistic reinforcement. The process of dehumanizing others can reinforce narcissistic tendencies, inflating the sense of superiority and uniqueness that often accompanies positions of power. Cognitive distortions. Dehumanization can lead to cognitive distortions that are characteristic of psychopathic thinking, such as the belief that rules don't apply to oneself, or that the ends always justify the means. Emotional detachment. The practice of dehumanization can foster the emotional detachment typical of psychopathy, allowing individuals to carry out harmful actions without experiencing guilt or remorse. Us versus them mentality. Dehumanization often creates a stark division between the in-group, those with power, and the out-group, those subject to that power, a mindset that can fuel sociopathic behaviors towards the perceived others. Rationalization of abuse. By viewing others as less than human, those in power can more easily rationalize abusive or exploitative behaviors, a common trait in both psychopathy and sociopathy. It's important to note that while dehumanization can contribute to the development of psychopathic and sociopathic tendencies, it is not a guarantee of these outcomes. Many individuals in positions of power actively resist the temptation to dehumanize others, maintaining their empathy and ethical standards. The key lies in recognizing the potential for dehumanization and actively working to counteract it. Manifestation of sociopathic tendencies in different settings. The development and expression of sociopathic tendencies in positions of authority can manifest differently depending on the specific context. This section explores how these tendencies emerge and evolve in various high-power environments, including protective detail, law enforcement, military, and prison settings. 3.1 Protective detail and law enforcement. In protective detail and law enforcement, individuals are granted significant authority to ensure public safety and maintain order. However, this power, when unchecked, can lead to the development of sociopathic behaviors. Manifestations. Excessive use of force. Officers may justify unnecessary violence as a means of control, demonstrating a lack of empathy for those they're meant to protect. Code of silence. A culture that protects officers engaged in misconduct, indicating a collective desensitization to unethical behavior. Racial profiling. Systematic dehumanization of certain groups, leading to biased and often violent treatment. Corruption. Abuse of power for personal gain, showing disregard for professional ethics and the law. Case study. The Rampart Scandal, a Los Angeles Police Department, 1990s. The Rampart Scandal exposed widespread corruption and misconduct within the LAPD's anti-gang unit. Officers were found to have committed various crimes, including unprovoked shootings, beatings, planting false evidence, stealing and dealing narcotics, and perjury. This case illustrates how a culture of impunity can foster sociopathic behaviors, with officers demonstrating a complete disregard for the rights and well-being of the communities they were meant to serve. 3.2 Military settings. The military structure, with its strict hierarchy and potential for life or death decisions, can create an environment where sociopathic tendencies may flourish if left unchecked. Manifestations. Dehumanization of the enemy. Viewing opponents as less than human, facilitating acts of cruelty. Abuse of prisoners. Mistreatment of captured individuals, often justified as necessary for intelligence gathering. War crimes. Engaging in actions that violate international laws and human rights conventions. Hazing and bullying. Abusive practices within the ranks, often justified as character building. Case study. Abu Ghraib prison scandal, Iraq, 2003 to 2004. The Abu Ghraib scandal revealed systemic abuse and torture of Iraqi prisoners by U.S. military personnel. Photographs showed prisoners being subjected to humiliating and degrading treatment, sexual abuse, and physical violence. This case demonstrates how the combination of unchecked authority, dehumanization of the enemy, and a lack of accountability can lead to severe human rights violations and the manifestation of sociopathic behaviors. 3.3 Prison settings. Prisons, designed to rehabilitate and punish, can become breeding grounds for abuse when those in power lack proper oversight and ethical grounding. Manifestations. Excessive punishments, using solitary confinement or other harsh measures beyond what's necessary for security. Denial of basic rights, withholding medical care, adequate nutrition, or other essential services. Exploitation, using position for personal gain, such as accepting bribes or engaging in contraband trade. Sexual abuse, taking advantage of power imbalances to sexually exploit inmates. Case study: Rikers Island and New York City. Ongoing. Rikers Island, one of America's largest jail complexes, has been plagued by reports of systemic abuse, violence, and neglect. Investigations have revealed a culture of brutality, with correctional officers using excessive force, engaging in cover-ups, and fostering an environment of fear and intimidation. This ongoing situation illustrates how entrenched power structures can perpetuate cycles of abuse and sociopathic behavior. Case studies of abuse of power. While the previous section touched on some case studies within specific contexts, this section will delve deeper into additional examples that span various settings, providing a more comprehensive view of how unchecked authority can lead to abuse and the manifestation of sociopathic tendencies. 4.1 The Stanford Prison Experiment, 1971. Although not a real-world case, this famous psychological study provides valuable insights into how quickly power dynamics can lead to abusive behavior. Key points. College students were randomly assigned roles as prisoners or guards in a simulated prison environment. Within days, guards began exhibiting cruel and sadistic behavior towards prisoners. The experiment had to be terminated early due to the psychological harm being inflicted. It demonstrated how easily ordinary individuals can adopt authoritarian and abusive behaviors when given unchecked power. Psychological profile. The study revealed that individuals in positions of authority quickly developed a sense of superiority and detachment from those under their control. This rapid shift in mindset highlights the potential for sociopathic tendencies to emerge in power imbalances, even among previously well-adjusted individuals. 4.2 The Milgram Obedience Experiment, 1961 to 1963. While not directly about abuse of power, this study provides crucial insights into how authority figures can compel individuals to engage in harmful behaviors. Key points. Participants were instructed by an authority figure to administer increasingly severe electric shocks to a person, actually an actor. A significant number of participants continued to obey instructions, even when they believed they were causing severe harm or potential death. The study demonstrated the power of authority to override individual moral judgments. Psychological profile. The experiment revealed how easily individuals can be led to commit acts that go against their personal ethics when directed by an authority figure. Disobedience. That was the first 2,500 words of the article. Please upgrade your plan to listen to up to 500,000 words. Simply go to audioread.com/ad and you'll see the upgrade option. Your support helps us keep making the service better. Thank you.